Welcome everyone, bienvenidos a todos. Mi nombre es Angela Abreu de Dominican Writers y estoy aquí con Julia Alvarez. Antes de empezar, le quiero dejar saber que tenemos interpretación en español. Si están en su teléfono o vía su computadora, abajo de la pantalla van a ver un globo que dice interpretación y ahí pueden escoger el lenguaje de español para que reciban la interpretación de la conversación con nosotros esta mañana. Le vamos a dar unos minuticos al resto de las personas que se unan a nosotros antes de empezar. Pero esta conversación se está transmitiendo en este momento vía el canal de YouTube de Dominican Writers y será compartida vía otros canales al fin de la conversación. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Good morning, good morning. Espero que todo el mundo tenga su cafecito. Yo estoy aquí en mi segunda taza. Julia, tú estás bebiendo té.
Estoy bebiendo té porque ya me tomé mis 3 cafecitos. No quería estar tan alterada que no podía.
Tú estás como decimos nosotros encendida ya.
Así que comencé con el té y además que este es un té para la garganta, porque estoy hablando tanto que estoy ronca.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So I hope to also listen to your people who attend and have questions. Anyhow, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Angela and the Dominican Writers Association for being such a wonderful support to Borderoflights, to all of us who are writers and Dominicans and Haitians and honorary Haitians and Dominicans. So gracias to all of you.
Cómo no, Julia, cómo no. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Como les decía, my name is Angela Abreu, the founder and creative director of Dominican Writers Association. We are here today to begin the commemoration of the Parsley Massacre that is coming up this week on its 83rd anniversary. For those who are not familiar, which I hope is not the case, 83 years ago, it's about 20,000 Haitians or so were systematically rounded up and killed under the orders of Dominican dictator Leonidas Trujillo. Dominican Writers Association and Borderoflights welcomes you to un cafecito con author Julia Alvarez, who is the founder of the Borderoflights. Today, we won't have the usual author conversation that occurs between myself and our venerated writers, but it will be a conversation with a more serious tone, one of grievance and respect and honor for our brothers and sisters who lost their lives so terribly. In an attempt to raise awareness about this tragedy and bring about some healing, Julia Alvarez founded Borderoflights in 2012. Every year, Borderoflights commemorates the victims of the Parsley Massacre and organizes projects to bring together a community that has been long suffering from the ethnic tensions passed on from one generation to another between Haiti and Dominican Republic. Dominican Writers in association with Borderoflights will be holding a series of events this coming week, and for more information on those events, please visit www.dominicanwriters.com/borderoflights. We will end this commemoration week with a virtual spiritual gathering on October 10th, marking the 83rd anniversary of the Parsley Massacre. For those of you who are joining us, if you're not familiar with Dominican Writers Association, I founded Dominican Writers Association in 2015. And my motive behind that was that as a Dominican American author, I didn't know of any resources and tools for myself to be published. As a young girl, I didn't read books by Julia Alvarez until I was in my mid-20s, and to me, I believe that was a disservice to myself. And no one should wait that long to read about our stories. When I found out that writers such as Julia and Angie Cruz and Juno Diaz and Nelly Rosario and Sofia Quintero existed, that meant the world to me, because I finally felt represented in our stories. And I was so proud that these writers were passing down our history and our stories in our books. So that is something that is super important to me, and something that I share all the time throughout our mission of publishing more and more Dominican writers. So I hope that you guys, continue to support both organizations, Borderoflights and Dominican Writers. We are on social media. We have a webpage as well, and we offer all the information that you may need to join either one of these organizations. So, Julia, vamos a empezar ya.
Ya vamos a empezar.
Mano a
Pero,
la obra.
sí. Andy, I do want to offer a revision of something you said.
Okay.
I'm not the only founder.
Okay.
It's from the start, it really has been a collaboration, and I could give you that story a little longer, but I know that they're probably joining us, but critical to everything was, for me, I had this idea, way back 1999 when I read Michelle Walker, of starting something called Borderoflights after I read her book, Why the Cox Fight, which is a history of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. We talked about it, we wanted to do it, but the internet was not yet prominent, and we both had full-time jobs and were very busy, so it kind of lay low. And then I think it was 2011, I was in Washington Heights giving a reading, and I mentioned this idea because there were a lot of Dominicans there of the diaspora, and many of them had never heard about the massacre. But some had, and among the people there was Cynthia Cadium, who came up, an activist, a Mariposa.
Yes.
Incredible woman, very, very behind the scenes, but doing a lot of the work. And she said, let's do it. And I said, hey, Cynthia, I don't have time, And she said, no, let's do it. And my God, I connected with Silvio Torres Ayant in Syracuse, who knew about this incredible person named Eddie Paulino, who was already on this, and working hard. So he got involved, another powerhouse. Megan, a former student from Middlebury College, Megan Myers, who now teaches at Iowa. She also, another powerhouse, was in there launching it. Two sisters, African-American, not Dominican, not Haitian, but very involved. Deandra and Raina Dodson, they joined. So, it just kind of spread. So to say that I'm a founder, maybe because at that point, I was the one with a prominent face, I was a little bit of the poster child, but I think it's important.
Yes, to give credit to everyone who has
been. Oh my God, and it's not only that, this work is done by many hands. So when you mention also, please support these organizations, and one of the ways to support it is to join us, because it's really a grassroots things. And what we're hoping is that Borderoflights, we're one little border on a tiny island, but that it can be a sort of model for other troubled borders and troubled communities of the people themselves, as we see now with Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Going forward and getting, mobilizing, because the politicians are not going to do it. Our governments are embedded in their narrative of what really happened and fake facts and all of this. So we the people, and Black Lives Matter here and there, it's an issue that we're seeing globally. especially prominent now with this pandemic. So that was quite a long reading, but I did want to give credit.
I agree with you. No, we're here to learn more about Border of Lights, right? And the work that has been done since 2012, right?
Right.
I understand that in the second year of Border of Lights, there were barracks built on the border of Haiti because they didn't want the Dominican brothers and sisters who were doing this commemoration to walk through. Is that correct?
Exactly. The first year, it was amazing, you know, the surge of people coming out in the Jabón and then across the border to see our brothers and sisters. You know, we had this call and response, and then lanterns were put on a river so that the river, which once flowed with you know, with blood, the Massacre River became a border of light. And it was so amazing and moving. And I think in 2013 was when they passed the law denationalizing Dominican of Haitian descent. And there was a lot of tension. And so there were barracks erected. So we couldn't go up to the border as we had the year before. And I don't know who it was, Megan, Cynthia, Eddie, people that were adept at the internet said, okay, a little group of us will get in and light a few candles, which we did, but we're going to go online. You know, we'll do a virtual vigil. And that more people than would be able to have joined us on the ground, joined us. So it's now there always is a virtual vigil, you know, commemorating the massacre. And this year, because of the pandemic and us not being able to travel there, it's now extended October 2nd to October 9th. As you mentioned, there's going to be workshops and talks. And on the 10th will be the virtual vigil. So we hope people will join us. And I'm involved in another project now called the Scheherazade Project. And that night, every night we have a performer for 101 nights till election to get the Sultan out of the White House. And that night, Rita Dove is going to be reading her poem Parsley at 8 o'clock. So that will be part of a way of Scheherazade, like we've hooked up with you, Dominican Writers, for the Border of Lights to hook up with the Scheherazade Project. So that also is part of, the history, as you said. We went virtual on 2013. So they shot themselves in the foot, you know. No vengan, okay.
Right. We figure it out. Our generation figures it out.
Good for you. You are right. You guys do, yeah.
So Julia, why the name Border of Lights?
Bueno, you know, we wanted to create at the border a kind of, I don't know, a symbol of light going forward. And also, you know, lights, we always in our cultura, light nuestra velitas y, you know, a los santos, a la virgencita. So it was a way to commemorate the dead. You know, we have to, these faceless, anonymous, many of them thrown in the sea. So the body count can never be accurate, which some historians then claim that, you know, it's fake facts to say there were that many dead. So we wanted to commemorate them, but not just stay embedded in that past, you know, but to create light going forward, to say we, the people, can create another way forward from things that have happened in the past. And also there were collaborations all along on that border. You know, it got politicized by the politicians, and a narrative got started about invasion and, you know, these are people that are going to just, so it's a way to also light forward. And, you know, Michelle Wooker and I sitting across cafecitos and talking about her book and about what had happened and how, you know, how shameful it is that it's never been properly addressed or redressed, this massacre. We started, you know, throwing ideas around, And it came up, the name Border of Lights, Frontera de Luces. And so it was always there in my head that that would be a wonderful name for our movement, for our gathering.
I agree. I agree with that. It's sort of reclaiming, right? Reclaiming this border from the hateful people that want to, annihilate such a beautiful, island. I mean, the other half of the island. I consider Haitians our brothers and sisters. To me, I don't even see them as separate. I'm like, to me, it's the same thing. I consider it as the same thing as me going from La Capital de Santiago. I'm just going to, visit the other side of, my family.
Exactamente. We're a tiny island. We share so much history of colonialism and slavery.
Yes,
and
yes.
all of that. We have so much to share. And instead, this division has been created by politicals, and it always gets a little bit more wound up whenever there's going to be an election and we need the attention focus over there. And we see the same thing in this country. It's all over. This violence against communities of color. And even if you're a person of color, then the divisions between, no, we're from Spanish, that's Africa. I mean, so many times I hear, that we have to protect ourselves from Africa next door. I mean, it's in our blood. What are you going to do? Siphon it off? Sabe? No,
right,
but
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, Julia, I know why we should pass on our stories from generation to generation. For me to speak to my 13-year-old son about, things that have happened in our past, how important it is to keep history alive.
Sí.
Why do you feel that we need to continue speaking about the Parsley Massacre?
Bueno, imagínate, I'm now the viejita of our little diaspora thing here. But when I came to this country in 1960, I did not know about the Haitian massacre. I knew about Trujillo because of Papi's involvement in the underground. But even then, there was this cultura of silencio, of keeping it quiet. And so a lot of our stories weren't told, and we were not of interest to the mainstream American readership. We were sociology, we were immigrants. This was not their story. So it wasn't available to me at all. And I remember the first time that I heard about it, I read a little book. I was in a library in the middle of, I don't know where it was. There was a little book called Blood in the Streets by Alfred Hicks. And it was like the first, published in the 40s, the first time that I really understood what had happened with Trujillo. Because even Papi, I think now I'm looking back and thinking, he and Mommy were under post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, they were so terrified. If they heard the sound of a Volkswagen, in this country, they would panic. So they were not conveyors of our stories. And this book by an American author is the one that opened my eyes. And then I read Parsley by Rita Dove. Imagínate, 2 American writers are educating me, a Dominican, on my history. And those were the first 2, the information that I had about it. And I thought, how come I never learned this? How come it's not in the history books? How come, nobody knew about it? And, you hear about Germany, you hear about concentration camps, you hear German citizens didn't know what was going on. And
Black history is kept out of our books.
Sí, señor.
Unless it feeds their narrative,
Sí,
right?
Sí. And like you are doing, Angie, and many Dominican writers, we have gotten curious. We go back and do our own investigations. We ask questions. We ask for the stories. We look for them. We want to know, because if you don't know, you are going to repeat it and keep repeating it.
Right.
And so it's so important. And it's sometimes really difficult. There's a lot of hate out there, a lot of fear, tú sabes, because they've been made the enemy. They are Haitian neighbors, and so it's really important because it's education and learning. And I think one of the things that the Border of Lights group has done that has been wonderful. Well, first of all, they're coming out with a reader, the Border of Lights reader, now
Yes,
this
wonderful.
fall,
Yes.
which will be really a way to get the story out there. Eddie Paulino and Megan Myers have both written about the intersections between our two countries and the history. And I think the younger generation is getting the story, and their thrust has been in the last few years to really get young people to know the story, to give workshops, because we don't just do the vigil and do something, ceremonial. It's also education, and we do projects that are from both sides, art installations. So I think the young people, it's critical to get them informed and educated, because then they tienen los ojos abiertos, and their hearts open too to what
I agree. I
to our
agree.
history.
I'm looking forward to the publishing of this reader, because
Yeah.
I want to reach out to Eddie to see what we can do about hosting workshops and getting these books out to as many hands as possible. So
Yeah.
Julia, I don't know if you're aware, but back in June, we co-organized a Black Lives Matter movement in Washington Heights, and it was a protest that started from 167th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue all the way to 200th Street and Dykeman Avenue.
Wow.
And while we were walking and protesting in this torrential rain, porque parecía que cayó un aguacero meant to wipe us out, it was it was biblical. That's what I said about that rain that day. And in the front of the protest, we had these young people from our community who held the Dominican flag in unison with the Haitian flag.
Ay, qué lindo.
And to us here in the US, at least our generation, Dominican Americans, we didn't grow up with that hate for Haiti, right? For, my sister-in-law is Haitian, my nephews are Haitian Dominicans. I don't see any difference. They're loved all the same. And when people saw the pictures, well, the Dominican Nationalists, vamos a decir, saw the pictures on social media and celebrities resharing the picture as well of this Dominican flag and the Haitian flag, it was just so heartbreaking to see that so many folks on the island feel that this shouldn't be happening. And the way they looked at it was, nunca se va a unir la isla, which is not something that we were stating. It was just like, these are our brothers and sisters. La isla ya está unida.
I know.
Right? It's one island.
Sí.
It's one island, and it's just so heartbreaking ver cuando esa cosa suceden. We had so many Dominican nationalists create fake accounts, come on our social media, threaten people, say such nasty and mean things. And I had never experienced that, by the way. And I had very little information about who these people were, but there's some nasty bunch of people who are on the island who still believes, like you say these lies that have been perpetrated by politicians against our Haitian brothers and sisters.
See, I can't tell you, because I have been in conversations, and sometimes with people I dearly love, whom I think are very educated Dominicans. And it's like a blindness, I see, but what about what they did to us in 1808, 1809? What about, and I think, my gosh, how far back are you going to go? And, do you trade massacres to revenge? You got to get out of that paradigm and that head. But it's so much, I mean, it's just layer upon layer and so many years of just cultivating this idea. I mean, Peña Gomez, when he was running for president, I mean,
Yeah.
totally, you know, even by his opponents, completely, you know, he wants the presidency so that he can give us over to Haiti. You know, I mean, it was this narrative, and people are fearful, and when they get fearful, they don't want to know, you know, they just, so yeah, I mean, I know that several of our Border of Lights people, and when we hold the vigil, people come on and trolls come on and they want, you know, it's ugly stuff. And you have
Yeah.
to really, you know, you have to go higher.
How you know about trolls, Julia? You get trolls?
Oh my God, I just got one yesterday.
Really?
Sí, señor.
Who's
Sí,
trolling you, Julia?
no, because somebody sent me this wonderful, you know, maybe it was nasty, but I don't think it was nasty, it was naughty. It said, looks like um, RBG just argued her first successful case in heaven.
Yes.
You got that one too?
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
Okay. So I don't tweet or anything, but every once in a while I go in there and I thought it was so cool. I put it in there. Oh my God. I thought the Q group, what are they called? The group that is really far right, aren't they? Don't they hold a Q as their logo? Something like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And one of these very vehement supporters was on there. And she basically me tiró un fuku por arriba, you know. I thought you were a moral and decent woman. I thought, has this woman read my books? I mean, what politics does she think I'm coming from? This, you are an evil woman. You know, what you wish on someone else, may it fall on you. I mean, I thought, oh my God.
It's Juanan, I think it's pronounced.
Juanan.
Juanan.
Their logo is the Q.
Yes, it's a Q.
See. So I just, at first I thought, let me respond to her. And then I thought, you know what? It's just going to be, you know, back and forth. I'm just going to leave it alone and not inflame it, and just keep saying what I have to say.
I can't believe people are trolling you, Julia.
No, por eso pasa, digo, you know, and it has happened on Border.
They must have nothing better to do than to troll you. My goodness. Bueno. But you know, back to our conversation about the trolls and these Dominican nationalists. A lot of these people who are also Dominican nationalists are younger generation. So to me, it's astounding that you have this generation who didn't even live through this, right? Who didn't even experience it, but they're on the island and they're just like steadfast. We hate Haiti. We don't want those people on our island. They all need to go.
See, I mean, again, that's why education is so important, because then you just receive generationally the same narrative that the older generations believed. And so the same problems just keep persisting. So yeah, I mean, think about us. You know, I didn't learn these things till I came here. You know, in addition to you with your starting the Dominican Writers Association. I mean, I grew up in the 50s in the DR. I mean, even higher education was considered kind of like far out for a female, you know, and the idea that we could have a voice of professional lives and so forth was verboten. And so, but it took coming here and getting out of that embedded narrative to hear a different story and to then go back. That's why it's so important for us of the diaspora to keep going back, if possible, to get our work translated so that it's in that culture as well. Because I consider us, even if I consider us writing our Spanish and English, those of us who write in English, and our stories are, you know, they circulate. And I think reading us, I can't tell you how many people, readers, younger readers have said to me, I didn't know about this, or, oh my gosh, you know, the Mirabar sisters, I didn't, you know, even then, now they're, worldwide because the UN took them on as symbols of International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. But that history wasn't getting out there, but it took us coming here. And sometimes it takes leaving to be able to see
To
new
access
things.
that information.
But then important, we mustn't forget, it's not just educating los americanos, los norteamericanos, but to take those stories back. And, and that's important. So it will take time, as you say, it's not automatic.
I mean, estamos en el año 2020.
2020, pero imagínate.
Y la gente todavía, it's so difficult for people to accept the truth.
See, and also, you think about 2012. What was that? That was 75 years after the massacre. And they passed that law denationalizing
75 years.
Even Dominicans of Haitian descent, after having birthright citizenship was a given. So, it's, we have the Jesuits on the border are amazing, by the way. They are real concientizados, they're activists, and there's a wonderful priest there, Padre Regino. And he said, Julia, in 37, we killed them with machetes and knives. And now we kill them cleanly with laws. We kill them cleanly with laws. In other words, we pass a law like this that renders them stateless, invisible, kills their civic presence in the society. And it's another form of massacre. So, see, unless we, porque gente dice, pero ya déjense de eso, vamos pa'lante, pa'lante, pa'lante. Although pa'lante means pa' atrás. But, let's just go forward. But you can't go forward unless you see, because you keep repeating it, And so that's why it's important to get the history out.
I completely agree with you. It's been, we're going on 83 years and we're still fighting against this. It's amazing. I hope that we do not reach 100 years and we're still, combating these stories that, that people are brainwashed into believing.
We don't have 100 years though, Auntie. We don't have 100 years.
I agree with you. We do not.
And this pandemic has shown us anything. It's that borders are very porous, and we have to learn to be a global community. And we can start with a tiny little island, or a little neighborhood. Pero I meant to ask you, Adi, when did you find out about the massacre? Or did you grow up sort of knowing it?
I will tell you that I found out through reading Edwidge Nantucket Farming of Bones in my mid-20s in college.
Yeah.
I would say that, I started learning about our history when I started reading Haitian authors and reading your books, because my mother was never talking to me about any history at all.
See,
my mom was born in 1952, and so she was still during the era of Trujillo. She was still old enough, she came here in 79, so she was still old enough to be able to say this was what's going on. So, but she never spoke to me about it, and I never learned any history from my grandmother. Sometimes we forget that our grandparents have lived through so much. Right, my grandmother was born in 1901, and she passed away in 1998. So, imagínate, I feel bad sometimes that I didn't sit down with her and ask her, about her life. To be born at the turn of the century in 1901 and to experience all those changes and everything that the island underwent, and she herself as a Dominican woman bringing up 12 kids. ¿Verdad? Me pesa mucho no haber, preguntándole sobre su vida y, the history of our family.
So I
it wasn't until very late that I learned about these moments in time.
You know, what you say, Angie, should be a call out to young people, young Dominicans, young Haitian, you know, of the diaspora, to not lose the opportunity, because, you know, when you're young, you don't, you have your own life to move forward, but these stories, because we were an oral culture, and the dictatorship even cemented that, because he was, you know, he only wants certain histories and stories told. So a lot of it is these old people, los viejitos, and previous generations that carry the story in them, and we lose it. Where did your abuelita come from? I mean, what
Puerto Plata.
From Puerto Plata. Yeah, I mean, so
Familia de
many
Puerto
stories. You know, with this pandemic, I know that the Spanish flu in 1919, I mean, 1/3 of the world's population was afflicted, and hundreds of thousands lost their lives. And I know it was in the DR. And I'm asking now the few survivors that are not, you know, that old, but not my abuelita's generation, what happened on the island during the pandemic?
Right.
You know, what happened in 1919? Pues yo no sé. A mí no me contaron nada, you know. And I think that the dictatorship, I think we still are, you know, kind of recovering from that. I think, you know, now it's studied as post-traumatic stress disorder, people that have been in trauma, but a whole country can go into trauma.
Many of our parents and grandparents, like you mentioned before, suffered from PTSD from those times, and they didn't want to talk about it. You know, that culture of silence was, de eso no se habla, nadie va a hablar de eso, you know.
Yeah, nosotros también nos afectó.
Yeah.
Because I remember when Garcia Girls came out, Mommy kind of basically disowned me. You're going to get us killed. I said, Mommy, it's 1991, you know. No, hey, you know, this is, she was so worried. She was so scared. And, you know, I thought back then she was censoring me and silencing me, and another.
I mean, imagínate, Julia. Trujillo was killing everybody. It doesn't matter where you were in the world. He had spies everywhere. There were so many journalists who lost their lives, right? And other political figures and people who were working on the underground, that once he found out that you were against him, he would send people out to get you. So I totally understand your mom's.
Sí, pero, you know, I didn't, you know, because I didn't have the context.
Yeah.
I now have, because I didn't know the story.
Right.
So I couldn't understand it.
Did you express to your family that you were writing this book and that you were going to include this content? Or did you wait till you published it and then you were like, ya, está aquí, recíbanlo?
No, porque mi editora, they had recently had a lawsuit by some family member, and so they had me send it out. And at first I wasn't going to get permission at all to publish the book. And so, because I sent it to my mother and father and so forth, and it was a struggle. It was a struggle to even get them to agree to the publication. And then my mother proceeded for 2 years, I was not to come in her presence. And you know, it was terrible. It was very painful. I almost was silenced. You know, if it wasn't for the support, and I didn't have a Dominican Writers Association back then, but I had an informal association of other Latina writers, Sandra Cisneros and Ana Castillo and Denise Chavez. You know, these people really supported me and said, no, Julia, keep telling the story. And, you know, then meeting Maxine Hong Kingston, whose book, Woman Warrior, meant so much to me. And I told her later, that first sentence, I think any Latina writer of my generation could have started with. The first sentence of the memoir is, my mother told me never, ever to repeat this story. And then she tells the story. And that's the first sentence. And I thought, that is, among the censors that we had to get through, our mothers and our fathers said, keep it entre familia, keep your mouth closed, en boca abierta no entran mocas,
Yep.
which was above the torture prison in the DR.
Yes.
And Edwidge talked about the same thing with it,
Yes.
Breath Ice and Memory and her community. Así que, I think there is that censorship passed down to us, and as females, especially, because we're breaking so many barriers there, we also have to cross a lot of borders to be storytellers. And some are more obvious for maybe my generation. Certain ones were so obvious. For your generations, they might be more subtle, but they're there, and there is a kind of courage and activism just in telling the story.
I agree. When we speak up, that's when we could change things. We speaking up and taking action against, the horrors that we're facing in this world.
Right.
Yeah.
Telling the story.
When your book was translated to Spanish, how was it? Because you first published in English, correct? How was it received on the island?
Primero, yeah, I'm English dominant. I even hate that term. Although more and more I see that I'm.
It's all right. We can relate.
But more and more I see that I'm writing my Spanish in English.
I know you get a lot of slack for that, because we get it too all the time. We get people, why are you not writing in Spanish? Why are you publishing in English? And why is your association name in English? And I say, it's intentional. We represent Dominican Americans because you're trying to erase us and shut us up, and we're still able to tell our stories in Spanglish, in English, in Spanish, in every which way.
And I think one of the things that we have to recognize is that we, because we write in English, doesn't mean that our Spanish is gone. Our rhythms, our cadence, our syntax, our stories, all of that is like, it's like Dominican roots coming into English and changing English. It's not just we are changing this culture, this language. But imagínate, after 2 years, it came out in Spanish, I think like 4 years later. And I didn't know anything about translation rights. And so the publisher, they had the right to choose. So they chose this Castilian Spanish translator. And the joke in the DR with my writer friends was,
Julia, I'm about to boycott Castilian translators of Dominican literature.
Imagínate. And then they had the Garcia Chicas talking about coches and carro. We said carro, and all of this stuff. And so I was dismayed, And when I protested to the publisher, they said, "Oh, you don't understand. We don't want these dialects. We want standard Spanish." ¿Qué? ¿Y qué eso?
But Spanish is not a universal language.
Colonial, see?
We don't speak Castilian Spanish. En Honduras no se habla Castilian Spanish. En Bolivia y Venezuela no se habla Castilian Spanish.
Y además, even now that I have a Colombiana who lives in Mexico who translates most of my books, I have asked and sometimes personally hired una dominicana editora, Ruth Herrera, and she goes through it because, no. For us, habichuelas are habichuelas, not frijoles, No. You have to get that flavor in there because these are characters returning to their native tongue.
This is our Dominicanism, and we're trying to keep this alive in our stories. And for people, mostly white publishing industry, to come in and do away with that, they take away so much.
It's another form of colonizing.
It's another form of erasure.
Yeah, and colonizing
our stories. Yes,
colonizing our stories. So there was that, and there was, this was a few years later, and Mommy, through much persuasion and family, Julia, and it was the Catholic Church was summoned by my very religious aunt saying, Julia, Jesús me enseñó a perdonar. So mommy didn't accept the book, me lo perdonó, imagine. She pardoned me for cosas. So there was peace, and then it came out in Spanish. And so all the people in the DR, all the relatives that had never read it because they didn't read English, all of a sudden, ay, comenzó de nuevo.
Ay, Dios mío.
Porque, ay, Julia, ¿y cómo va a ser que tú dejaste que ella publicara ese libro tan sucio? Because it wasn't just, it was, these girls are having relationships and sex and using drugs.
But they had relationships and sex.
Sí, pero,
to me.
Erasure. No,
ellos se olvidan que ellos tuvieron un marido, que tuvieron que, ¿cómo engendraron los hijos? ¿Cómo vinieron?
Imagínate, papi era el más joven de 25 hijos. La primera tuvo 10, 25 legítimo. La segunda tuvo 15, 25 en total, ese abuelo mío. Y además que él tuvo algunos en la calle. Así que hay otros en la familia que también, I would say to papi, y entonces papi, what happened there? Oh, it was his patriotic duty. We were underpopulated and we had to populate the island. Ah, sí, ¿verdad?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. See what I mean? The narrative that gets out there.
Have you met all your siblings, Julia?
Bueno, his siblings.
Okay.
Papi como el más joven, and maybe because he came to this country, era uno de los únicos that recognized his half brothers and sisters. But every time we had an event, cuando mi hermana se casó y se casó allá, una boda, la primera nieta que se casa, y una boda grande con toda la familia, there were some of my papi's siblings who said, si lo invita, yo no voy. They would not go if the half brothers and sisters were invited to the wedding. And papi said, perdón, they're coming, their family.
¿Qué cosa con nuestra gente? Que nosotros hacemos la sinvergüenzura, pero no la queremos reconocer.
Sí. We hide esconder el sol con un dedo, tú sabes.
Right. And the same, going back to our conversation, the same with our history. Things happen, but then we want to pretend that no, it didn't happen. And right. Then if somebody brings it out, oh, no pasó así no fue.
Thank you, Angie, because it's giving me new insight to supposedly this new phenomenon of fake news. Olvídate, it's been there before. Fake narratives, denials, misinformation, all of that stuff is part of our legacy as human as human critters, and that's why it makes it so important to get the stories out, and for our young people to be storytellers and to listen to the stories, and I think that's we because now we're the generation that is a little ahead of them, we can say and give testimonial to the fact that this is a struggle and it's not over. We have to remain vigilant and aware,
Right. Well, thankfully now we have the existence of the Dominican Studies Institute.
Qué bueno.
There's an online archive that everyone is able to access. You're able to email them and request any information. If you're there, they also, give out fellowships for any PhD student who is doing any study on Dominican history. So I urge you all to please visit the Dominican Studies Institute online. They're everywhere on social media. And please continue writing your stories. It's a shame that as older, Dominicans, we have to learn about this history through other means, not from our people.
Sí,
right?
Sí.
We don't learn it from our family members. We learn it through books because that's how I learned it, right? And you know, books open the world to me, and we encourage everybody to please continue writing your stories. Do not be afraid to write them. Pass down your history to your children, to your children's children, right?
Exactly.
Please join us this week in to commemorate the, you know, the Parsley Massacre. We have a series of events. We have a panel on Monday, and we also have the viewing of Stateless, the documentary,
It's a powerful documentary.
which is a powerful documentary by Michelle Stevenson. It will be screened live, and all that information is via our website, DominicanWriters.com/borderoflights. And join us for the virtual vigil as well on the 10th.
Yep.
Right.
You know, and you don't have to, when I tell people, I think it starts at 7 to 10 or something, and people say, wow, 3 hours. I don't, you can just go on briefly, holding a candle, posting a comment, you know, spreading the light. It doesn't have to be a huge participation, but the more the better, you know, and you empower all of us, because the light gets brighter when one more joins in. And, you know, ultimately we're all working, trying to create, you know, a more beloved island, a more beloved community, a more beloved global community. And, you know, we need each one. And so it's really important for us to spread the word, to spread the stories, and to support each other. So I want to thank you, Auntie, for doing this, and all those who joined us. And
I want to open it for questions.
We
have a couple of questions here from folks who have joined the conversation. Amanda Bucci dice saludos. Amanda from Mariposa Foundation here. The Mariposa Girls.
Oh yeah, I know.
The Mariposa Girls have a few questions for you.
Wow.
But they had to log off. Abrazos, Julia. Amanda, si quieres, por favor, no puedes hacer la pregunta. On the YouTube channel, muchos están comentando. There was a young lady who didn't know about the Parsley Massacre until she participated in the Dominican Film Festival.
Sí.
She said the closing ceremony, they presented the film La Isla Rota, which is a wonderful film. I watched it myself the other day on Amazon. Every single Dominican in the room was upset. People commenting on the conversation that they love this conversation between you and I. We are still recovering from being under a dictatorship. I think that's why some don't want to talk about it. Birthright citizenship should be a right. Imagínate todos esos dominicanos nacidos aquí being told you ain't a citizen. You can't attend school nor go to hospital. It's just wrong.
And we have a president that is trying to do just that. Así que, and we know, well, you know, the shoe will hurt if we allow that to happen to us. Pero hay que ver que, you know, we're doing it to others. Sometimes by our ignorance, as they say, Black Lives Matter, silence is violence.
Yes, yes, totally correct. Maria Elena Gaitán expressed localization and translation. YES translate into our own form of Spanish, which are rich and beautiful and should always be determined by us. ¿Cómo fajarse con los publishers para lograrlo?
Bueno, the publishers now are getting concientizado, see, and are realizing that, and you know, we just have to, I didn't know that I had a choice. You do have a choice, you know, and sometimes when you're a first-time writer and you want so much to, you know, make your way in the world, you think those are the terms you have to accept. You can create your own terms. And I think that now with the empowerment of communities of color coming together, publishers are listening, you know, publishers are listening, organizations are listening, publishers are seeing that they don't have editors. I mean, all down the line, people of color in their, not just among the authors, but the people that work there. So yeah, it's a moment that we need to seize and yes, fight for.
Jasmine Mendez dice, there's a whole museum for the Jewish refugees in Sosúa, pero nada todavía para nuestros hermanos haitianos.
Sí, pero también ese museo is, at least it's something, you're right. And, you know, I have been in touch with the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., trying to get them, you know, get access to some of the correspondence that they have there about that Jewish refugee settlement. And, you know, the woman there was alarmed. She thought I was some sort of kook or something, you know, when I told her, oh yeah, you know, this was not a humanitarian project. This was an effort to hide what a massacre that had happened in 1937, and Trujillo's reputation internationally had sunk. And so at the EVN conference, to make a big gesture, you know, that he was the one for human rights and freedom, he said that he would accept 200,000 Jewish settlers. Only about 400, 500 came. Because he also charged them money and gave them the worst land. Pero nada,
Right.
you know, that narrative, and that's the Holocaust Museum, you know, it needs to be, we need that. And through the efforts of Cynthia and Eddie and Megan and the people on the ground in the Jabón and Wanament, we now have a plaque in the Jabón, which commemorates.
Okay, so there's a plaque.
In Creole and
Okay.
Spanish.
That was a question here posed, if there were any plans of some kind of physical memorial in the Jabón for the victims of the massacre.
Yeah, we want very much. We've talked about it. You know, what kind of memorial to create? You know, kind of like the Vietnam Memorial. What kind of a memorial to create? This plaque is just a plaque to begin with, but the idea, yes, is what kind of a memorial can we create that honors, you know, the lives lost, and also, you know, is a symbol of our unity as one island. I mean, this logo,
yeah,
maybe whoever from Borderoflights is listening can tell you, but it's a beautiful logo created by an artist that first or second year of Borderoflights. And, you know, there's so much creativity in our communities, diaspora communities. And there's artists out there that will be inspired. And let's put our heads together so that by the 85th, maybe, we have a plan.
I agree. Another viewer, Brenda Torres, is expressing she is an educator in a bilingual elementary, a high school English and high school Spanish, and she became an educator because of you, Julia.
Ay, qué lindo. You know, as a viejita, I'm getting sappy these days, and to think, you know, I mean, I turned 70 this year, and I've been writing since my teenage years coming to this country. And to think, you know, you just keep doing your work because you feel like it's your calling. But, you know, at this stage of life, to feel like others are coming up and have felt released and their gift opened up and are, you know, educators or storytellers or whatever, and that you had a part of that, that's, you know, that's how we pass things on.
Yeah.
Because, you know, this is
a very important role in society.
Yeah. See, and we know, you know, in our culturas of familia and extended familia, that it, you know, it was that abuelita and that tia and that madrina and that comadre, and, you know, that help you get through things as a community. And we are a community, even in diaspora. We can't forget that we're, you know, we are connected. We don't lose that.
Another question here. Le quiero decir a las personas que estén en el Zoom que por favor usen el botón de Q y A para hacer sus preguntas, porque si no se pierden dentro de los comentarios en el chat. Joseli is asking, even though you have been an advocate for Dominican representation in the US, it It's now later on in life that you have taken a more grassroots approach to your activism. When did you feel that call that writing was not enough?
Okay, that's a very good question, because I've been thinking about that. I think that part of it, I was an activist earlier, but it was more with, coming of age in the women's movement. And during the Vietnam War, it was more targeted towards the 60s and what were the activists zeitgeist here as I, became a college student and learned about Vietnam and colonization and all that was going on, the civil rights movement. So I think my activism was very much concentrated in the issues of my day. And, I say that people say, oh, your book changed me. Well, as a writer, the books that I write educate me, and I think it actually started within the time of the butterflies, that realizing this story and researching it and going back and asking questions and oral histories of people, that I became more concientizada, about our history. And then, just because of my relationship with Bill Eichner, who, by the way, has been a workhorse for Borderoflights. He's been our chauffeur. He's, driven the pickup full of volunteers over to the border. He's been amazing.
Bill is your husband.
Bill is my husband. He grew up in Nebraska, a sharecropper, farmer, dirt poor.
Te casaste con un campesino.
Un campesino puro. So we ended up in the DR, and he was aghast at what was happening to small farms in the mountains there. And that's when we started Altagracia, kind of a finca, fundación, that promoted literacy. We had a library. Megan was very involved in that. Now Mariposa, we've donated the farm to Mariposa DR Foundation so that they can continue projects there. Pero bueno, with that, I became with Bill's project and ours, I became very aware of environmental issues there, which is a whole story we can get into, and all kinds of ways in which, Haiti has been decimated and a lot of the DR.
I see.
And so that was another, activism part of it. And through that project, getting to know Mariposa and their thrust for young girls, impoverished girls, to concientizar them, to educate them. Tricia, who started that organization, an American woman, but totally aplatanada, more than maybe even me, really has been a powerhouse. So there are all these ways, and it's funny because I meet young students here who are so ahead of where I was, and I said to Bill the other day, I believe in evolution now, because these young people get it, and it's taken me a lifetime for certain ones of these issues. And I think it's just that, because this is something to remember, because we came, the ones behind us, the path is more open than what it was for us. Issues that we didn't even know about, that we learned about and told about, then it just seems like from behind us, they say, well, why didn't you see this? Because it wasn't there to see. We didn't have a vocabulary. We didn't know the stories. We needed this kind of transmission. And so I think that's that activism has happened with time. And, the new novel, Afterlife, is very much about sometimes it's not enough. Our stories and our words and our poetry and our music and our art and our self-development. Sometimes you have to get out there and stand, take a stand. And it's not either or, tú sabes.
I could totally relate with you, because in June, with with the protests that were happening in June, I felt that we needed to go out on the streets, that Uptown Manhattan needed to join the protests, and it was time for us to stand with our brothers and sisters. And you know, do what we have to do and not just sit behind a computer, but get out there.
Exactly.
So that is something that I've been an activist for a long time. So these matters, you know, it gets exhausting, and sometimes it's disheartening when the change is slow to come, but it works.
Yeah.
And it helps.
And there are moments in history. I think it's important to stay focused on your talent and your gift, because, you know, what was it? One of the civil rights movement, I think it was Thurman, that said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. So I think it's important to honor your gift and to develop it in service to your community. But sometimes there are moments in history where that has to be balanced also with a larger community and its needs, and what ways you can push that forward. And we're seeing that one of those moments now. And because we're elders and because of you know, Bill's lung condition, we have had to keep a strict quarantine. And that's why we started the Scheherazade Project, which is activism, women artists, many of them Latinas, some of them Dominicanas, and every night at 8 p.m. It's on YouTube, but we have a website, the Scheherazade Project. A woman artist gives like a 5-minute performance, and it's all about activism and honoring our muse and sister Scheherazade, who kept herself alive and saved all the women in her.
How do you spell that so people can go right now and look it up?
Ay, Dios santo, déjame escribirlo para no decirlo mal. The Scheherazade is tengo que escribirlo, SHEHERAZADE Project. And as I said, on October 10th, in honor of Borderoflights.
It's SHEHERAZADE
Project. But we're also on Twitter and Facebook, and it's hashtag 101 nights, because our original idea was 1001 nights, like Scheherazade had to get, you know, to save her kingdom. But we launched on July 25th, and it was 101 nights exactly till election night. And our activism is about getting people to go out and vote. And I want to give that shout out to get out and vote, because you know, we have a sultan in the White House who is, you know, murdering people in the kingdom, especially people of color, immigrants, undocumented, are in danger. This whole nation is in danger. So these activists put their art out there as a way to show their protest. So on October 10th, it'll be Rita Dove reading her poem Parsley, which was, you know, the moment that many of us realized that history through her poem about the massacre. So anyhow, we're gonna, do you have more questions?
Yeah, we have questions from Rebecca Dugue. Ella pregunta que ¿por qué es más notorio el conflicto entre República Dominicana y Haití que entre República Dominicana y otros países que lo colonizaron antes? Y esta pregunta es de parte de las niñas de Mariposa.
Bueno, because we've talked about it, you know, we've been talking about it, you know, the privileging of, I mean, even claiming we are Spaniards, we're, you know, Spain. I mean, think about how within 50 years they decimated the indigenous population, you know, the Taínos. You know, that was slaughter. The African enslavement, you know, and we should actually be very grateful to Haiti, because it was during the Haitian occupation that slavery was abolished on the eastern side of the island. So yeah, it's that racist narrative where we privilege and are blind to the ways in which the North Americans, the marine occupations that we've had, the interventions, the fact that they put Trujillo in power, you know, they were the ones that propped him up. You know, there's that history. And I think it's what, you know, racism takes all kinds of different forms. And it's a form also of, you know, racism in our history and privileging and claiming, you know, the whiteness and the lighter skin and the more powerful countries as our heritage or our heroes, you know. And so, yeah, that's very much something that has happened.
Thank you. Rebeca también dice, y nosotros como agentes de cambio, ¿qué podríamos hacer para promover más la tolerancia y amor a nuestro vecino país de parte de las niñas de las mariposas?
Well, I think we've been talking about it, right, Angie? Telling the story.
I think our stories matter.
Our stories matter, and you know, Haitian lives matter. Dominican lives matter, Black lives matter. And, you know, as that quote said, if you come awake, you know, you are a light, you know, and spread it. Don't just hide it under a bushel. Yeah. Join Borderoflights. That would be awesome. Be part of the movement, because it's not just, it shouldn't be something that just happens in October to commemorate the massacre. It is a way of going forward. So all of those ways are ways to, you know, mobilize, tell the story, and to fight the fight, because it is a struggle and it's ongoing.
Thank you. Oriel Sue wants to say, I want to thank Julia for normalizing the telling of silent stories. I am a Honduran Chinese writer, and your work has inspired me since I arrived to Los Angeles in the late 90s, when millions of us Central Americans were thirsty to know our histories of diaspora and wars. Dominicans and Central Americans have so much history in common. Thank you for all your writing, from Oriel. And Gladys Aponte says, my Dominican elementary school students in New York City classroom have felt seen and empowered to see and analyze the use of Dominican Spanish in your books. Muchas gracias. I grew up thinking my Dominican Spanish was incorrect, so I worked hard to catch and counter these ideologies. We continue to receive messages that it is inferior to other Spanish varieties. Is this something that you continue to see and hear about?
Oh my God, yes, yes, yes. And you know, the ways that we internalize these kinds of prejudices, because I remember the first time that my publisher sent me to Spain with a Spanish translation of In the Time of the Butterflies. I said, a mí que no me hagan entrevista en español porque yo no lo hablo muy bien y es muy feo.
You felt like Selena? ¿Te acuerdas Selena cuando hacía entrevistas?
No, ¿qué?
That her Spanish wasn't too good, so a ella la relajaban mucho porque no se daba a entender muy bien.
Sí, pero yo me sentía como inferior.
Sí.
You know, how I internalize that there was something wrong with our Spanish. And now it's like, no. With Afterlife, they just translated it. It just came out in Spanish. Oh, I just got the new copy, Más Allá. And they had a translator, and Ruth did the Dominicanization. But I decided, no. And I went through it, and I said, and I was amazed, but you know why? Because in Penguin, I think a Vintage Español is owned now by Penguin, the editor there was a Ladino. And so he got it. And he said, you know, at first I made the excuse, no es porque yo sé mucho, yo nunca estudié español, pero I know when it doesn't sound right, tú sabes. When somebody says, habichuela con arroz. No. Un dominicano va a decir arroz con habichuela. Even the sequence or something like that.
Yes.
He got it. And he took every suggestion that I made.
What's the name of that editor? Can you share?
I'll find out because his name, imagínate, I'm showing my age.
I have been hosting conversations with people in the publishing industry for the past few weeks because I want our audience to have an insight about these people who are our allies, who are working towards publishing our stories in its true form. So for someone like him who is Latino to advocate for our stories, that's important for me to highlight and continue sharing with our audience. So when you can, email me.
Sí, él se llama Cristóbal Pera. Cristóbal
I'll Google him.
And he is in Penguin Random House.
In Vintage.
Español.
In Vintage en Español.
Cristóbal Pera.
I get the newsletter, so I received the newsletter of your book being translated.
So he was an advocate, but you know, if he hadn't been there, they would have said no.
Exactly. Exactly. This is why we need more people of color in the publishing industry.
Right, because they become advocates, and that's important.
Yes. So
Julia, I'm going to have to go soon.
Yes, I don't want to take more of your time. Thank you so much. It has been
If there's
an honor.
A last question, I would love to.
Is there? No, I don't see any more questions. I don't see more questions that we haven't answered.
Or maybe a comment by
the YouTube. Well, Brenda Torres on the YouTube channel says, this is what I needed to see today. I'm going to write with intent to publish. My birthday is tomorrow, and this literally feels like the best gift of my life. Muchas gracias.
Felicidad.
Nos podemos ir con el corazón lleno de amor, con esos comentarios tan lindos que han hecho nuestros seguidores hoy en día. Julia, ha sido un honor, un placer. Muchas gracias por estar conmigo durante esta conversación. Se te quiere,
Gracias. I need something to offset the troll from yesterday.
I think we spoke a lot about a lot of things that will very likely accept trolls, and just the fact that this conversation is about commemorating the Parsley Massacre, and and holding a vigil for our brothers and sisters in Haiti, it will be enough to ignite the fire in many people, both in a positive manner and a negative manner.
Bueno, yo tengo aquí mi velón de la Virgencita. And people say, ay, tú eres muy católica. To me, the Virgencita is the feminine, tú sabes.
Sí.
El poder de la mujer. También que la Virgencita, our official Virgen is la Virgen de la Mercedes that came from Spain. Pero Altagracia appeared on the land, and ella la Virgen del Pueblo. So I love that. We have this protector, this luchadora, as our looking over. So I light my candle to her and I say, bueno, Virgencita, pa'lante.
Thank you. Once again, everybody, if you want to have more information about Borders of Lights, the org is bordersoflights.org. Our organization is DominicanWriters.com. Please follow both organizations, join both organizations. If you find yourself on the island, hopefully this pandemic will be over soon and you'll be able to join the vigil next year on foot and, do the regular normal process that you guys do of walking to the border to commemorate this moment in time, right?
And doing workshops, that involve both communities on both sides of the border. And also, as we said, look for the Border of Lights reader that's coming out. Megan Myers and Eddie Paulino are doing that.
Sure to share that with our audience.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Yes,
Writers.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm in touch with Eddie, so we would definitely, and with Megan, we would definitely share that with our audience and maybe host the book release.
Yeah, now that it can be virtual, you can have several of the contributors
So Julia, one last thing. So for anyone who wants to join next year to be on the border, how does one go about doing that? Do they send an email through the website? How do they reach out?
Well, maybe I noticed you said borderoflights.org, and I have noticed that because, you know, this is so hands-on, grassroots, people are putting all this time into it, over and above jobs, multiple jobs, and now with, you know, many of them with kids at home and so forth. The website isn't always as updated as the Facebook page.
Okay.
So, and through that, but even within the website, people can join in, ask for information. It's, you know, the circle can be as wide as possible. And by joining, what does that mean? Whatever skills, whatever time, whatever way you want to contribute, every little piece will be helpful.
So I'll just share here that if anyone is interested, they could also email us through their website, and I'll be able to be in touch with you or Cynthia or Eddie or Megan, and share that information with whoever is interested. So I'm going to, you know, volunteer to be that middle person if anyone has questions about joining. But Julia, buenas tardes.
Ay, gracias.
El resto de tu fin de semana.
Tú sabes que tengo una nieta que está aquí en el colegio.
Oh,
y,
sí.
le prometí que hoy es el cumpleaños de las dos amigas mejores que ella tiene aquí en Middlebury, que le iba a hacer un flan. And I have to get going because I have to.
I know.
El flan coge mucho tiempo.
Este flan.
Y yo hago un flan de chocolate, which is to die for. Así que...
Julia, ¿qué edad tienen tus nietas?
Esa tiene 18.
Okay.
Y la otra tiene 16. Entonces, dos nietos de 9 y 8.
So I imagine that your grandkids already started reading Dominican books.
Imagínate, estos son grandchildren through osmosis. Eso, porque I didn't have any kids of my own, but they're my stepdaughters have, you know, they're stepdaughters, but I said with the grandchildren, I'm not a step nothing, tú sabes. So actually the two girls have gone down to Mariposa Foundation and have been volunteers there and loved it.
So a couple of weeks we launched our Dominican Readers book box.
Oh, wow.
And it's a box for children's books of only Dominican author books, and a book for YA as well. And in the YA box, we are including your books.
Ay, qué bueno, gracias.
Okay, because to me, I feel that we partner with One Kin, which is an organization that supports Black and Brown businesses. And to me, it felt very important to launch a book box sharing our Dominican stories. So these books are only of Dominican books, Dominican authors.
Wow.
So that children as young as 3, 4, 5 years old can start reading our stories.
Wow.
So just wanted to let you know that we have included your books in the YA box to share with folks.
Ay, gracias.
Okay. So ya te dejo. Muchas gracias once again.
Ay,
muchas gracias
Angie, for this.
to everyone that is here with us today. Thank you so much. If you want to learn about the book box, go on our Instagram and go on our website, send us an email, and we will definitely tell you how you can get that box. Pero gracias, Julia. Gracias. Buenas tardes, todo el mundo.